2023. What a great year for games you were. Provided you aren't the one developing the games, you were sure to have a fantastic experience with this amazing medium. Alan Wake 2 proved to be an amazing return to once thought dormant IP, RE4 Remake showed how lightning can in fact strike twice in the same place, Mario Wonder revitalized one of Mario's lanes that was thought to have grown stale, and Baldur's Gate 3 was quite literally the best game ever made. Or at least that's what I would say if I had played any of these games. Turns out, I can't buy a lot of games. My country's economy is in shambles and video game prices have skyrocketed, especially new games, meaning I was only able to play 3 games released during 2023. One I bought, one was free, and the last one I got through nefarious means. So it would seem I'm vastly disqualified to make any sort of ranking of this year's best games. But I did play Portal 2 this year and it was really fun, so I want to talk about it. This is the top 10 best games of 2023 Poor Edition, comprised of the games that I've personally played during 2023, no matter what year they actually released in. If that sounds woefully uninteresting compared to the dozens of lists of actual 2023 games, it's because it is. But hey, points for originality, right? But first, some honorable mentions. Kirby Superstar. I never thought of Kirby as a particularly exceptional franchise, and when I got to replay Superstar back in February, I didn't expect much of it, but I guess call me surprised, cause this game was really fun. Everything just clicked right into place, and the game was fun all the way through. Steven Universe Unleashed the Light. The last of the Steven Universe Paper Mario-like RPGs, and while not as good as its predecessor, Save the Light, this was still a pretty enjoyable time. It certainly helps that it takes my favorite show in the world as reference, but I think it's recommendable nonetheless. Resident Evil 5. This one could have made the actual list if I had, finished it. I got stuck in one of the bosses and couldn't for the life of me get past it. So who knows, maybe the rest of the game sucks balls, but from what I've played, this game is the perfect continuation to RE4. Just an off-the-walls, heart-pumping roller coaster through and through. And lastly, Fortnite. I don't know what happened this year, but I got into Fortnite and I've actually played a lot of it. I'm not proud to be saying this, but it is what it is. Fortnite is fun, actually. Also, as dishonorable mention, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Fuck this game! Everyone says it's a great game, I loathed every second of it. It was 18 hours of boring missions that I wanted to get done by the 3rd hour. I don't want to play a Sly Cooper game ever again, sorry, it's just not my vibe. But enough rambling already, let's get to the main list. Starting with number 10, Florence, played in January. It's not often that I find a game that uses its mechanics not to engage the players in a challenge, but to make them feel things and tell a story through those feelings. In its 40-minute length, Florence will not hit you with any puzzles or questions, it will just let you be, as you feel the mundane, the thought-provoking and the heartbreaking aspects of this young woman's life. It's not a game you can rush through. You need to refrain yourself and take it all in. And in a year in which I've done anything but that, I think that sets Florence apart quite a lot. I think it's safe to say that I'll always be a Sonic fan. It's something pretty much inescapable from me at this point. But as the years go by, I feel like it's harder and harder to keep handing Sonic the crown when I come across so many better games to play. Case in point, I've played 10 Sonic games this year, and only one of them got a spot on this list. It wasn't the new game that came out, nor was it the incredibly botched update to the one that came the year prior. No, it was the same song and dance, it was Sonic 3 and Knuckles, played in April. For the record, 3 and Knuckles isn't my favorite Sonic game, let alone my favorite 2D one, but it's the best I've played this year and yeah, it's really good, okay? Just 2 or 3 hours of non-stop creative levels with tight controls and a perfectly balanced difficulty curve. Ice Cap rocks, Sky Sanctuary is just lovely, Sandopolis kinda blows, Hydro City makes up for it, what else is there to say? I do think 2D platforming has far surpassed this game in the coming decades, but for a game released in 1994, I'd say it still holds up remarkably well. Number 8. Sultan Sanctuary. It's easy to go for the safe stuff. We're always consuming things we've already heard at least something about. But when I booted up this random ass looking game in my Epic Game Store library, I had no idea what I was getting into. As I would come to discover in the following 27 hours, is that this shit is really fun. Salt and Sanctuary is essentially a 2D Dark Souls, and it doesn't do that much to set itself apart from that initial premise. But it doesn't really need to, because it accomplishes that exceptionally well. From its controls to its difficulty to its intricate design, it's a delight to slowly crawl your way into this world. Aside from a few hiccups near the finish line, this is a really quality game. Can't wait to get around to the sequel sometime later in this decade probably. Number 7. Shovel Knight. Played in September. Had really high hopes getting into this one, and the game didn't really live up to expectations. I played the first 2 campaigns, thought they were good, albeit nothing special, and then I replayed them again and realized, oh shit, this is actually kinda crazy good. Nothing like a tightly crafted marriage of the best parts of 80s and 90s gaming. Shovel Knight oozes charm and elegance in every facet of its design, from the incredible soundtrack to its lovely pixel art style to its fine-tuned stages, not to mention there's 4 whole campaigns. Shovel of Hope was great, Plague of Shadows is not as good but I still like it, Spectre of Torment is amazing, and I haven't played King of Cards yet. That's, pending. But yeah, Shovel Knight, it's great. Who would have thought? As it turns out, Mario games tend to be pretty good, so much so that I've played 4 of them this year, and all of them should be on this list. Now, of course, you'd say, just pick the one you like the most. You can't just make half your list consisting of Mario. But aside from 2 of them, they're all really different from one another, so fuck it. This top 10 has just become a top 13, fucker. At number 6, I'm putting Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, played in February, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, also from February, Mario 3D World, played in November, and Mario Odyssey, played in January. That's a lot of ground to cover, so let's make this quick. Bowser's Inside Story is quite possibly the best Mario RPG, though I haven't played TDYD, so who knows. It's colorful, it's inventive, and a little bit easy, but that's okay. Mario Kart 8 is probably, likewise, the best Mario racing game. Big words coming from someone who has 180 hours in Mario Kart Wii. Just an extravagant display of quality racetracks with delightful visuals. 3D World is, I feel, highly underappreciated in the talk of best Mario games. Even though it seems a lot more basic than most, it makes up for it in the sheer polish and its immaculate pacing, even putting aside the Bowser's Fury expansion. And Mario Odyssey, admittedly a bit worse than I remember, it did got a bit repetitive by the 12-hour mark, but it's still a lovely time, with the best controls in a 3D platformer and a joyful world to explore every nook and cranny of. If you think about it, all these games came out in the span of 9 years, proving how consistently good Nintendo is at handling its flagship series, and that's not even considering the fact that my actual, honest-to-god favorite game of all time also came out during this period. I promise I'll play you next year, honey. Number 5. Metroid. How I love you. I spoke a couple of years ago about my excitement about the series' revival with Metroid Dread, which I did play and I did love, so this year I decided to go back to a couple of games in the series that I hadn't touched in a while. One of them was Super Metroid. A timeless classic, a masterclass in subtly guiding the player in an expansive world, and a great game all around. But the controls are kinda jank, so instead I'm gonna give this spot to Metroid Zero Mission, played in March. Zero Mission has certainly streamlined the Metroidvania aspects a little bit, being a lot more linear and requiring far less diverting from the main path. Really, you can treat the whole game as mini Metroidvania chunks stitched together. That being said, I think it is remarkable just how much of a sense of flow this game has. Every single room in this game was crafted down to its smallest detail to take the most advantage of Samus's moveset. The way the game hands you the upgrades makes it so that it's constantly evolving and expanding upon itself, and it's up to you to make the experience as free-flowing as possible. Add that to the extremely tight controls and a thrilling epilogue to cap it all off, and you've got one of the best games in the franchise, and also, it came out a month before I was born apparently. So you know it's good or something, I don't know, that's probably how it works. Number 4. Portal 2. It's pretty fucking epic. Played in July. what better feeling than playing a game that everyone said was amazing, and it turns out it was amazing. I played Portal 1, it was great, but it was short, and Portal 2 is everything I could have asked for a sequel. It's long, it expands on the ideas of the first to the point that the first starts feeling like a tech demo, but it never goes over scope to the point of losing the script. Just a perfect balance of old and new, plus a genuinely really funny story to tie it all together. Shout out to my friend who's way more into Portal than me for joining me for the co-op campaign. I even like speedrun some of the levels, which I rarely if ever do in a game, so you know this one kinda clicked hard for me. 9 out of 10, can't wait for Portal 3. I have a problem. I cannot put down Stardew Valley. Played every month of 2023, aside from the last two because I kinda ran out of things to do, but the point still stands. Even after playing Stardew a considerable amount during 2022, I'm still here. Still giving gifts to townies, still growing crops, still selling wine, still obsessively pursuing the perfection rate. There is an argument to be made that at this point in time, Stardew became kinda boring, as I'm mostly just grinding to get some artifacts and a shit ton of cash from kegs, but that's very easy to say when you've already spent 200 hours in the game, sweet lord. I don't know how this game managed to hijack my brain so effortlessly, but it did, and I'm upset, but I gotta respect the accomplishment. Most of Stardew's greatest qualities are present in its first 50 or so hours, when you're still unlocking parts of the world, but even 100 hours after that, it remains a fun, hard to put down commitment. So, for essentially defining my gaming experience this year and the one before, I give it the spot number 3. There are two games that I would consider my most anticipated of all time. One of them doesn't exist yet, and it doesn't give any signs of doing so anytime soon. But the other does, luckily, and I've played it already. It's Tears of the Kingdom, played in May, and some of June and July. I played Breath of the Wild back in 2018 when I was 14 years old, and it basically hypnotized me for 200 hours straight. I had never played anything like it. No world had ever felt quite as alive and exciting to explore as that one. And 5 years later, I still stand by that. Breath of the Wild was and is one of a kind. And when that E3 2019 trailer promised a sequel for Breath of the Wild, I knew what my mind was gonna be centered around in the coming years. 4 years it turned out. Honestly, hype started to dwindle on me a bit, but alas, it came out and I played it. Tears of the Kingdom is clearly better than Breath of the Wild. It has better mechanics, better shrines that utilize its mechanics, it has a bigger world to explore, and a far more realized endgame. And being better than a game I already consider one of the best ever made, well, it obviously belongs on this list. That said, I do think Tears of the Kingdom owes a bit too much of its success to its predecessor. I'd be okay if it reused the same general look and feel of Breath of the Wild, but no, it also reuses the entire map of said game, which is really disappointing since, for me, discovering a brand new uncharted world was like 70% of the appeal of the first game. Sure, you've got the sky and the depth, but they are nothing compared to the surface. As a result, I've only played 74 hours of Tears of the Kingdom, considerably less than its predecessor. I still enjoy what I played, and heck, it's number 2 on this list for a reason. I feel like the best way to put it is that it's the most disappointing masterpiece ever made. A game that should have been a lot more, but is still quite a lot when taken at face value. Still, I'm glad it came out before the eventual implosion of the sun, and I'm glad it was good. Number 1. Donkey Kong Country Returns, played in April? What the fuck? Yes. The best game my broke self has played in 2023 is a 3DS remake of a Wii game released 13 years ago. DKCR is nothing short of an achievement in video game design. If you unlock every level in this game, you're looking at somewhere around 12 hours of perfect level after level. But hey, you might ask, isn't 12 hours kinda short? No, it's not. It's the perfect length for the game to explore its ideas to its fullest while still leaving you wanting more. Not every game needs to squeeze 50 hours out of you, and this is shining proof. I understand how a random 2D platformer released 2 generations ago seems a bit anticlimactic, but may I remind you, this is a poor man's edition. When video game prices are as high as the Everest, you won't spend your year playing the triple-S of AAAs. You'll play a bunch of old small shit, and you know what? I'm not sure I mind all that much, because this game is simply excellent. Funnily enough, I haven't played Tropical Freeze yet, mostly because I wanna give it all the time that it probably deserves, so who knows, maybe we'll see it somewhere on next year's list. And that's my 2023 Games of the Year Poor Edition list. But as it turns out, I do other stuff than just video games, and some of them are actually quite cheaper. So here's a rapid fire list of stuff I liked this year outside of video games. The new Spider-Verse movie was great, if only slightly worse than the first. Oppenheimer was absolutely jaw-dropping. Elemental was very cute. Suzume was pretty great, as I've said before. The final season of Succession certainly delivered. The New Age Bomber Guy video deserves an Oscar. And though not from this year, I watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, La La Land, and The Breadwinner, which were all cinema. Also, I rewatched Steven Universe, so you know, that was swell. Thanks for watching, bye!